Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to You Can Talk. My name is Ruth Finney, and we are talking about we're going through the ABCs of communicating, or the ABCs of tongue types. I'm sorry, the ABCs of tongue types. We started Monday with the letter A, and today we're doing the letter B and the bully. So we are going to be talking about the bully this morning. Good morning, Brittany. How are you? I hope you're doing good this morning. Good to see you. Thank you for coming in. So yes, we're going to be talking about the bully. Many of us have dealt with bullies, run into a bully, known a bully, or potentially was a bully somewhere throughout our lifetime. Nobody likes a bully, right? Nobody likes to be hurt. Nobody likes to be talked about. No one likes to be forced into doing things they don't want to do, all this type of stuff. But sometimes in life, we have to deal with bullies. It's one thing to have to deal with a bully as a child, but it's something totally different to have to deal with a bully as an adult. Good morning, Levi Boyd. How are you? Welcome in this morning. Good to see you. Thank you for being here so very much. We're talking about the bully this morning. We're talking about the bully. So I don't know if any of you have dealt with bullies, but at some point, I'm sure you've run into one, and prayerfully, you've not ever been one. All right. But no matter how old you are, nobody likes to deal with a bully, right? Good morning, Brittany. Good morning. And incidentally, bullies are typically those same bullies that we had to deal with when we were kids. They've basically just sort of bullied their way through life. It's not always the best, but it is effective, right? We know that bullying is an effective way to get things done. Good morning. Thanks. How are you? Welcome. Good to see you. Good to see you. When we were a kid, though, we had options, right? We had things that we could do, right? Maybe you run and told an adult, maybe you run and told your parent, whatever it was. Maybe you bowed down to their requests and just did what they wanted to do so that you could have peace and get through your day or whatever. Or you may have fought back, right? Maybe you fought back. And that also was an option that you may have had. So, but when we're an adult, we may decide we may not have people that we can run to come to our rescue, right? And we may decide that we don't want to give in to their demands, and we absolutely, can't go around always just beating people up, right? So those aren't options that necessarily work for us. So we have to learn how to, deal with these bullies and learn how to have effective communication with these bullies, try to earn some of their respect, try to knock down some barriers and improve the health of our relationships with these bullies, which can be difficult to do. So that's what we're going to talk about this morning. I have 3 different types of bullies that we're going to go over and talk about some things that we can potentially do or say to them and to be more effective. So the first thing we want to do about a bully is, number one, change our perspective, right? Change our perspective of how we see the bully. Most of the time when we look at a bully, we assume that they're just mean and hateful people who, are just don't like us, right? We'd never take a minute to think that this person may be going through something. They may be dealing with something. There may be a reason for why they are the way they are. And maybe it's because we don't care. They're hurting us. We don't want to take the time to care about their feelings or what's going on with them. But it's important that we try to get to the root of the issue sometimes with a bully, so that we can figure out where it stems from, if possible, if need be. And it may not even be necessary, but we still need to know how to talk with them, how to deal with them. We have to think about that most bullies are bullies because they've been bullied themselves. It's been modeled to them. Maybe they grew up in the house with a bully. Maybe they were bullied throughout school. Good morning, Real Mamas, Real Problems. How are you? Good to see you. Good morning, Harrison. Welcome in this morning. We're talking about the bully this morning. So different ways. We're going to look at 3 different types of bullies that we can communicate with. Most bullies have suffered from, it's been modeled to them, or they've suffered some level of trauma, and that it's just the only way that they have come to survive. It's their sort of survival mentality. Maybe they grew up in a family where there were hardships, financial issues, all kinds of stuff that has caused them to be bitter and angry and resentful of just people in general. Or if they've had something bad happen to them, then of course, these are things that help that sort of feed into that bully mentality. And so rather than, having a voice or feeling like they can have something that they can control because they had so many things in their life that they couldn't control, that bullying, they have found to be the most effective way to do that. And when they've been doing it since they were a kid, it's just one of those things that they continue to do throughout their life. So, but we have to deal with them, right? Because now our paths have crossed. So we have to learn to deal with the bully. So the first type of bully that I want to look at is the boss bully, right? Let's look at the boss bully. This is the boss that is constantly making demands. They are, telling us what we are and aren't going to do. They're threatening to exploit us, threatening to fire us. They're making rude or lewd comments towards us, all that. And they just basically don't want to show us any respect. So this is the boss bully. So what are some effective things that we can do to, communicate with this boss bully? The first thing we can do when we're dealing with this type of person is to try to change the location, right, that we're having the conversation, because most boss bullies feed off of, the audience. They feed off the energy of others. And when other people are around, like if they're yelling at you or talking to you in an ugly way and being disrespectful to you in front of other people, they're getting a little bit of a high off of that. So try to change the location if at all possible and say, I understand that you're upset. We can have this conversation, but I don't want to have it right here, or we're not going to do this right here. And try to change the location. If they don't care, if they're not listening to you, walk out of the room. Walk out of the room. And if they are adamant about continuing to have this conversation, they will follow you. And if you are concerned about safety, then bring a person with you, bring another person with you and say, hey, can you come out here with us? We need to have this conversation. And this is not the place, right? Because maybe our coworkers don't need to be involved, or we don't need to be yelling in front of our customers or our patients or other parents or whoever it is, because sometimes bullies don't care. They don't care who's around. And it can be disrespectful. It can be disheartening. It can be embarrassing and inappropriate, just inappropriate when this type of behavior can sometimes happen in front of other people. So if that's the situation, try to move into another location so that you can, get away from that audience. And it'll also help to stop feeding some of that energy into the person who is having the fit. Thing says I have to gray rock the boss bully until I find another job. What's gray rock? I'm not familiar with that term. Yeah. So, but yeah. And sometimes, you may have to, and I'm not saying that this is not, you may have to end up finding another job. Those are still options. Good morning, Destiny awaits me, Jeremiah 29:11. Yeah. So, but yeah, definitely, you may have to, because, some people, they're just going to continue in that negative space. But while you're still there, these are some of the things that you can do with them. Another thing that we can do with the boss bully is try to speak with them as much as possible in writing. You might want to avoid as much verbal communication as possible, simply because if you have negativity or frustration or anything in your spirit, and they do as well, anytime you all meet, anytime you all are expressing words towards each other, you're going to cause each other to probably pop off and be angry, or it's harder to control your tone. It's harder to control your emotions, and sometimes it can be harder to control your words when you're physically in front of the person. Thing says, just say nothing. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Do what they say best as able. And that works as well. That works as well. If at all possible, try to speak in writing. Limit your conversations. And that's exactly what you said. Thanks, is to just say, Yes, no. Try not to react emotionally, right? That's a big thing with them. Try not to react to the things that they say or do a lot of sort of back talk, because the more you say stuff, the more they're going to, get angry, get aggressive, and start down that whole line of just, being bullying. Speak in writing as much as possible. It's when we write towards people, it's an easier way to control your emotions. It's an easier way to control your tone. And then the best thing to do is, once you've written what you need to say, if you need to have a conversation with this bully, make sure you have someone proofread it, just so if at all possible, someone that you trust who can proofread it, look over it and say, hey, how does this come across? Because when we don't like a person, it can come out even in our writing. So we have to be careful with our tone, and we want to make sure that we stay as much level as possible when we're communicating in writing with the bully. But it can be effective because a lot of times it's a way to get the bully to listen to you. This is especially effective when you have someone who just won't even listen to you. You feel like you can't even get a word in with them. So writing is a good way, because you're not there. They can read what you have to say. This is a great way to get your words in without having to have conversation with them or feeling like you're not being heard. If you are also, when you limit your conversations, you also want to make sure that if you're concerned about how they talk to you, you can keep, certain people around, or keep the door open if you're in a private office. Keep conversations public. So if you need to, so other people can hear what's going on, if you're concerned about, the types of words that they're saying to you, and you want to have witnesses for, future purposes, then that's also something you can do. The other thing you want to do is be proactive as much as possible. And I have found this to work very well for me when I'm dealing with a boss bully, that person that, tries to control you, and you're like, why on earth is this person this way? And what I realize a lot of times is that, and you'll hear me say this a lot, when people know our intentions, then they can deal better with us. So for instance, when I go to people, I try to reveal my character to that person up front. Like, this is who I am, right? This is, I realize you don't know me. I just want you to know that, I'm not a messy person, or I'm not into mess. I stay to myself. I do my work. You don't necessarily have to get on me about doing the things that I'm supposed to do, because I'm going to do those things. If you have a question, or if you have something that you want to talk to me about, just come to me. I will listen to what you have to say. And this is kind of how I like to be approached. These are the things that are effective for me, or this is easy to get me to listen. If you're not yelling at me, if you're not, talking ugly towards me, I don't do well with disrespect. And just let people know up front, I'm going to give you respect. I'm going to respect the things you have to say. I recognize who you are. I recognize the position you hold. And I'm here to work with you and not against you. So I just want you to know we're on the same team and this and that. So letting people know sometimes up front the type of person you are lets them know, okay, I'm not going to have to worry about this one, right? And that can kind of relieve some of the stress and some of the bullying off of you before you all kind of even get started. Or even if you do get on a bad foot, you can go in and say, hey, you've been approaching me this way. You've been talking to me in this manner. It's not something that I respond effectively to. So if you want to, get my attention, I want to continue to maintain respecting you. And this is kind of the way I would like for you to approach me if you want me to be responsive to the things that you're asking of me. Okay. Thing says, I wish our culture would make true bullying an extreme faux pas. It's damaging to the other humans' mental health. It is. It really is. I mean, I see people every day who take off from work. I mean, I've had to deal with difficult people for sure in supervisory positions. But I've seen people who have had to take off, on a regular basis and go through therapy and all this type of stuff, trying to deal with these boss bullies, these supervisory bullies. because of their mental health. They call them mental health days, and they're just basically taken off because they don't have it in them to deal with the boss bully, the person who's causing them mental anguish day in and day out. And so luckily I work in a place where we have a union, but some places don't. I used to not. I used to work in private dental offices and we didn't have unions. So you had to, learn how to advocate for yourself because there was no one who was going to, advocate for you. So I had to learn real quick some things to say in order to protect myself and in order to, prevent people from coming at me in a way that I didn't like. So these are the things that I'm sharing with you. This is why I'm sharing these things with you. The second type of bully I want to talk about is the relationship bully. This is the person who, speaks disrespectfully, they talk ugly to you. They try to be controlling, whatever. And this can be a male or female. It doesn't matter. And again, all of these, the boss bully as well can be a male or a female. So, try not to attach any gender to this. So when we're dealing with the relationship bully, they try to take over so that your life, they try to be controlling and this and that. So the first thing you want to do with a relationship bully when you're living with a person, and I know this can be difficult to do, is try not to be reactive to their yelling, their screaming, their, whatever it is when they're going off on you. And that can be difficult to do. But if you can outlast their emotions, eventually they will calm down, because you can't yell and fuss and argue with yourself by yourself for long. So if you get to where you don't respond, you be quiet, go in another room, whatever it is, they'll eventually stop talking and stop yelling. Do what you need to do. Go take a walk, go outside, do some other things around the house, do some projects outside the house, whatever you need to do until you can kind of calm down. Because just because they're yelling and you're not saying anything doesn't mean that you're not being emotionally angered, right? Because for sure, you might be yelling at me. I may not be saying anything to you because I don't want to add more fuel to the fire and turn this thing into, a huge fireball. So I may choose to be quiet, but that doesn't mean I'm not still getting angry inside. Good morning, Eve. How are you this morning? Good to see you. Good to see you. So yes, try not to be reactive until they can calm down, and then you allow yourself also to calm down. And while I'm doing that, when I'm, once I move away, move out of the space, move out of the room, and kind of get out of their, their environment where they are, I start processing, what they're saying. I think about what they're saying and why they may be potentially saying it. So that's another thing. When we aren't so reactive, that means we're typically listening to what the person is saying and finding out what it is they're so angry about, and finding out maybe, going through some thoughts of potentially why, and also thinking about some things that we can come back at them with, but in a way that's not emotionally driven. So when we allow ourselves time to calm down, think about what it is that we want to say, think about what they said, and then we can think about how we want to approach the conversation. And once you've calmed down, once you can see that they've calmed down, then you can go back and say, I see that you were upset. I heard everything that you had to say. And if you have a moment, will you give me, is it okay for me to express what I'm feeling now, or express what you said, how you made me feel? And sometimes even when you do that, when you don't respond, if they're a decent person, they'll come back to you and apologize before you even have the opportunity, before you even get a chance to talk, about what it is you wanted to say. If it's a good person, that's not always the case, but if it's a good person, with a decent heart, they just have, emotional reactions often, then they may apologize to you before you even get a chance to respond. But if they don't, just say, I heard you, can we talk about some things? I heard what you said. I want to share some things that are about what you said, or I want to talk to you about how you're talking to me and how it's making me feel, and, what I'm not appreciating, and this and that. But here's some things that sort of moves relationships into that bullying mentality that we can potentially avoid, right? So one of the things that causes bullies to become in that way in a relationship is when we don't maintain our independence. If you're a man or a woman, whatever it is, maintain a sense of independence in your relationships. And I say this because very often when we get into a relationship with someone, we're trying to be our best selves. We're trying to be accommodating and loving and all these things until we take on more things of the other person than we probably should. And what you start, you need to be able to know that you can maintain it, right? And if it's not something that you can maintain on a long-term basis, then you're going to become bitter and resentful, especially if you feel like the person is not, appreciating it, or you're just tired. You just get tired of, taking on all the things that the person is no longer doing. And men do this and women do this alike. It's just one of those things we do. We want to be everything for the person that we're with, right? But with that causes us to take on more than what we can actually handle. So, or more than what we can actually do on a long-term basis. We think, okay, well, I'm being nice right now, but I didn't know they were going to expect me to do this forever. Once I came in the picture, they no longer do it at all, right? How many times have we said that? And then, you end up in a marriage and you get to where you hear people say all the time, well, I don't know, my husband takes care of that, or I don't know, my wife deals with that. She handles all that, right? Try not to get to that space in a relationship. It's good to know, it's good to have your roles in the marriage or in the relationship. I do this, he does that, whatever. But try not to be so completely hands off that you don't at least know what's going on. Stay in the know. Stay in the know. Don't get to a place where you just check out, in things. So if they're handling the finances, then you make sure you kind of keep an eye and stay abreast of what's going on. If the other one's handling the children and the schooling and the homework and, the house things or whatever, stay abreast of what's going on. Keep your eyes and ears to what's going on so that, you don't relinquish all of your independence to the other person, because that can cause them to become resentful, mean, and hateful. And now that whole bullying type of mentality, those words come into the picture. Well, you don't do this. I'm always having to do this. What can you do anymore? You're becoming lazy. You're becoming, all these things. And it just goes on and turns into this bullying type of situation. Good morning, Juvie. How are you? Welcome. Good to see you. Welcome in. We're talking about the bully this morning, how we communicate with the bully. The other thing you want to do in a relationship type, bully with a relationship type bully is continue to use your voice. Don't get to that place where you are no longer able to speak for yourselves, right? How many times have we run into couples and we're asking something or talking about the person, and all of a sudden the woman is answering all the questions for the man, or the man is answering all the questions for the woman, and you begin to wonder, well, can they talk? Like, I thought I was talking to this person, and yet you're answering everything for them. So, try not to get to that space where you allow, it may seem, good at first, like, oh, this person knows everything about me, or, oh, they really care. They're paying attention. They know what I like. They know what, and then it becomes, oh yeah, what she said or what he said, right? Try not to get to that space in a relationship, because eventually that's how we're slowly relinquishing our independence to the person, and they start to take on, become more controlling. Those are things that sort of feeds that controlling mentality, because now what used to be cute is now an irritant, because now it's like, well, I can speak for myself, or, well, no, actually, that's not quite how I feel about that, and then it becomes, Thank you, Juvie. I appreciate your compliment. Thank you. And so it becomes, we're letting the person know that it's okay. So, right. So people treat us the way we allow them to. So if we let people know it's okay for you to talk to me this way, it's okay for you to talk for me, it's okay for you to do these things for me, and we get to a space where we're no longer okay with that, then they become resentful. It's like, well, it used to be okay for me to say these things or do these things, and now it's not, right? So, I'll always try to start the relationship in the way that that you can maintain it. And I know that this is hard to do, but I promise you, if you start overcommitting to things and over taking things on and over compromising and all that in the relationship, it will cause problems later down the line, and especially if it moves into marriage, because now, people are going to expect you. Well, you started out doing this and doing that, and now you don't even do this, right? So, and it just becomes a problem. It goes on and on, and that sort of bullying, controlling conversation and communication begins to enter the picture. So resentfulness, bitterness, all that, it enters the picture and causes problems. So when you're dealing with that relationship bully, try not to be reactive. Maintain as much of your independence as possible, right? And I'm not saying to be, I don't want you all to misread me with this, okay? I don't want this to mean don't let the person do anything for you, okay? You still want to, be in a relationship, you're still functioning as a team, but stay abreast of everything going on, okay? Stay abreast of everything going on. Eve says, if there is control in relationship, there can be no relationship. I cannot function and will not try to function there. Yeah. Controlling is never good. I mean, being in relationships is an act of will, and it should always be seen as such, right? We don't demand people to be in our lives. We don't try to control everything about, people being in our lives. It's an act of will. It's a privilege. And I talk about this even in friendships on the tip that I put out yesterday. It's a privilege. It's not a right. And we have to recognize the people who choose to be in our lives and recognize that they're there because they want to be and not because we're demanding them to be. So if you are in that type of relationship, you may want to think twice about, whether or not this is somebody you want to be with long term or how long you want to be in this relationship. So because that can definitely be red flags if you're dating someone who's automatically, wanting you to dress this way or behave this way or look this way. If you can see those early signs of them trying to be controlling, then you want to, pay attention to those red flags and get out or handle it and talk about it before it even gets started. Thank you, Juvie. So yeah, try not to, go down that road. But when we're so in love and we're so infatuated and we're excited, we think everything is just, we're more accommodating and we think it's okay to take things on, but those things can be problems later. The last one I want to look at, and this is for the older adult. I want us to look at this adult child bully. A lot of us have older parents, and maybe if you're in your 30s and 40s and your parents are getting older, or in your 50s and 60s, and you have parents who are still living in their 70s and 80s and even 90s. Sometimes we have to be careful that we're not bullying our parents, okay? Because parents, or if you are a parent and your child, your grown adult child is bullying you, it can be a problem, right? This is when we try to be controlling of what they can and can't do. And if the child is trying to control everything about their finances and how they're living and, speaking for them, or just becoming outright disrespectful. And, doing what they want to do and no longer taking you into consideration as well. They've sort of lost that thought that, you're the parent, because now they feel like they're the parent because they're having to take over your responsibilities and things that you used to do because you can't do them anymore. And that can release a sort of bullying mentality into the child. And so this is something for the older adults if you're having to deal with that child bully. If the first thing you want to try to do as much as possible is to reestablish your authority. Remind them of the things that you can and can't do, that you're still an adult, that you're still their parent. Remind them of the areas where you're still very conscious and very capable of what's going on, and maintain as much of your independence as possible. I know when, as parents get older, it can be very good to say or feel like, oh, I'm just going to release this stuff over to my kids because I'm just getting old and I don't want to have to deal with this anymore. Again, as much as possible, try to keep eyes and ears and stay abreast of what's going on. If you do release the control, if you do give them power of attorney, whatever it is, try to stay aware and make sure that your child is keeping you aware. Ask questions, what's going on with this? Have you taken care of this? Is there anything that I need to do? Do you need help with anything and all that? If for some reason you are worried, bring another person in for oversight with your finances. So if possible, try to maintain as much of control of your life as you can. And the things that you can't do, bring someone in. If it's not your child, or if you do bring in your child, bring in someone to help oversee the things that your child is doing. Okay. So have more than just one set of eyes on your stuff. So set up boundaries, so you may have to set up some paperwork to say, well, I'm giving them permission to do this, but they don't have permission to do that. When it comes to your personal business matters, you might need to set up some limitations, around what you do and don't want them to do. So try to maintain independence, and try to maintain some boundaries if you need to, so that things don't get out of control. And the last thing you want to do if you're an adult and you're grown and your child is getting to where they're taking over all your stuff, get comfortable with your no. Get comfortable with your no. It's okay to say no, just because you've relinquished some control over to them. You've allowed them to take over your stuff. It's okay to say, you know what? That's not what I want. That's not how I want this is not how I want this to go. Try not to be manipulated and guilted into doing things that you don't want to do because the child thinks it's the best thing. But if you know that it's not the best thing, or it's not going to work for you, you still have a voice, no matter how old you are. You still have your life. You still have, who you are. You need to maintain some sense of who you are, and remind the child that I do still have will. I do still have will. These are things that I want to do. These are things that I don't want to do. They may not like it. They may not respect it. And that's okay. But, try not to just give in because the child is yelling at you, or trying to make demands upon you. You still have a voice. Let's see, try to take care of yourself. Don't play the victim. Okay. Try not to play the victim, and don't allow them to play the victim. A lot of times kids will try to control you because they are guilt you into, because they're trying to make you feel guilty for how you parented them, things that you did or didn't do. You didn't. You did the best you could, right? You did the best you could as a parent raising them. You made some mistakes. There's some things that happened that maybe you wished hadn't happened. Forgive yourself for it. Apologize to the child for it. But don't try to spend the rest of your life compensating for what you did or didn't do when they were a child, and allowing them to bully you into doing the things that they want you to do, because that's just enabling them to be more of that's just enabling that behavior more and more. Accept responsibility, apologize for the things you didn't do, and then, try to do better moving forward, be the best parent that you can be, and maintain your sense of independence. But when we allow our kids to guilt us into, taking on too many responsibilities for them, and releasing them all the control and power, it can backfire. It can backfire on us. So you absolutely need to be careful as a parent. If your kids are coming of age and you're getting, less able to do some things, and you put some things in their hands, and it turns into a situation that you never imagined, then be very careful about how you move forward in that. Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty much all I had this morning. Those are the 3 different types of bullies. I hope you all got some points for, future reference. If you know someone who this may benefit from, please share me out, or send this video to them. And we'll be back here on Friday with the letter C, So, and I'll have a lesson coming out tomorrow on friends. Saturday, you all will get to meet my friends, my very good, close friends. They will be here on Saturday. And we'll be doing a whole friendship panel. So I appreciate each and every one of you being here this morning. I hope you have a phenomenal day. I'm going to say a quick prayer and then we'll head out. Father, I thank you so much for who you are. Help us, Lord, to deal with these bullies that come into our lives, knowingly and unknowingly. Father, just pray to help us change our perspective and our outlook, to know that to be able to work with the person, to be able to have some compassion even when they don't. Father, we are called to be the light. We are called to be the salt. And help us to learn not to let our emotions get involved when we're dealing. Help us to see these bullies the way you see them. Help us to connect with them on levels that we never imagined and that they never imagined. Give us the patience and the strength to overcome the mean and hateful comments that can come out of their mouths, and the courage to say the things that we need to say, and the ability to not say the things that we don't need to say. That will just, stir up. Help us to be mindful and recognize when someone is trying to bully us, and to have the courage to, not allow that to happen, to stand up for ourselves. Remind us that we have voice. Remind us that we have love, and remind us that we are worthy. We are worthy of being loved. We are worthy of being respected, and worthy of not being spoken to in a manner that is demeaning. So, Father, watch over us, keep us, guide us, control our tongues, and help us to know that you are still in control. We love you. We thank you. Bless each and every person in this chat this morning, those who are watching the replay, and bless us as we continue to move forward in our day and in our lives and in our relationships. We love you. We thank you. These things I ask in your son, Jesus' name. Amen. All right, everyone, you all have a wonderful morning, a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you all back here on Friday morning. Have a wonderful day. Be the light.